Hello, and welcome to the Art of Living Well podcast. I'm Stephanie Mae Potter, and I'm here with my co-host, Marnie Dotches-Marmette.
We created the Art of Living Well podcast to empower you to live your happiest, healthiest, and most authentic life. Each week, we will bring you inspiring and motivating conversations covering health and wellness topics, including fitness, mindset, food, travel, product reviews, and strategies from a variety of experts, including our own bank of knowledge.
We are excited to educate, motivate, and inspire you to change the way you perceive health and discover your art of living well. Get ready to feel inspired.
This episode is brought to you by our wonderful sponsor, Appetite for Change. Appetite for Change is a nonprofit in North Minneapolis that uses food as a tool for health, wealth, and social change. This year, in light of COVID and the unrest in Minneapolis, Appetite for Change has continued to ground themselves in their mission and center their work around community connection and nourishing food.
They launched a pilot program called Community Cooks Meal Boxes, which provides fresh produce and pantry items, plus 2 recipes for over 300 families at no cost to the family. The program has been such a success that it has been extended for another 6 weeks and will continue into 2021. AFC has utilized the kitchens of their 2 restaurants, Breaking Bread Cafe and Station 81, to produce over 200,000 meals that have been distributed across the Twin Cities to healthcare workers, seniors, and families in need.
In addition, they have 7 farm plots across North Minneapolis that are tended to by community members and Appetite for Change youth learning how to grow a variety of plants. These fresh fruits and vegetables are distributed throughout the North Side. Even in 2021, Appetite for Change is committed to building a more equitable food system by delivering fresh and nourishing food to healthcare workers, seniors, and families in need, tending urban gardens, and more.
We have been collaborating with Appetite for Change over this past year, and we have loved their dedication to their mission, and we so look forward to volunteering with their organization and working with them more in 2021. To learn more about Appetite for Change, listen to episode 31 of our podcast with one of their founders, Michelle Horowitz.
For more information or to donate, head on over to appetiteforchangemn.org/impact or on Instagram and Facebook at Appetite for Change. Hello, and welcome to this bonus episode of the Art of Living Well podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, we want to ask that if you enjoy this podcast, if you wouldn't mind just taking 2 minutes to leave a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. Doing so helps us reach more people so others can benefit from the inspiring information that we share. We would also love if you would share this episode with friends or family or anyone that you think may benefit from it and tag us on social media. Thank you. We are thrilled to bring you today's guest, Sue Cantor. Sue is the owner of Engage Physical Therapy and Wellness, a private physical therapy practice that specializes in helping people get back to moving better with less pain and getting back to a more active life without expensive drugs and surgeries. Sue has over 25 years of experience in the healthcare profession. Prior to starting her private practice, she worked in a lot of different settings. Sue's experiences have included being the director of cardiac rehab research and employee fitness program at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. She worked as a physical therapist at the University of Illinois Hospital in Chicago. She worked in home health physical therapy. She developed and managed a small physical therapy practice in a women's health club in the Minneapolis West Metro. Sue worked as a physical therapist and clinical education coordinator at Ridgeview Medical Center for 15 years before starting her own private practice. Sue's approach to health and well-being is to partner with the patient to determine individual values, needs, and goals. She feels strongly that it is imperative to help educate patients about up-to-date research, supported information. She uses evidence-informed evaluation and treatment approaches, while she builds and maintains a strong alliance with the individual. And with that, let's dive right into our conversation with Sue. Welcome, Sue. We are so happy to have you with us today. We wanted to know if you could start out by sharing a little bit about your background and your story and kind of how that led you to where you are today.
Sure, thank you, and thank you for having me. Really appreciate this. So my journey started back when I got a master's degree in exercise physiology with the intention of maybe going on to do a PhD in research. But after I got through my master's degree, I realized that I really enjoyed working with people. Wanted to continue to pursue fitness prevention, health promotion. So I started out by running a cardiac rehab program, was the director for 3 years, as well as doing some employee fitness at Washington University in St. Louis. While doing that, I got to know some physical therapists and realized there was this whole other world to exercise and other ways of managing barriers to getting more physically active. So got super interested, got offered a half ride to go back to PT school at Washington University, and the rest is history. I finished that up, got a master's degree, and started practicing in Chicago. I've been practicing now for over 28 years and continued all this time to have a passion for health promotion, fitness, wellness, prevention, and have always wanted to really integrate the two. And I think as a young PT starting out, I was just learning how to be a PT and learning to do all the things that PTs do. And as time's gone on, because I think medicine is changing, and I'm starting to see that integrating more of a biopsychosocial approach to medicine and a more fitness forward approach to PT has really, I think spurred me on now to feel like I can really combine the two. So it's where I've landed, and just recently started my own practice after a long time of doing this, jumping out at an older age, but pretty excited about it. And so far it's gone well.
So tell us about that jump that you just made.
Yeah.
What sparked that? I know you kind of talked earlier before we came on that you started as a side hustle and now you have your own practice.
Yeah, so I wish I would have done this 10 years ago and had the nerve, but I did start out part-time to sort of dip my toes in the water, and found that I really liked it. I liked the independence. I think I was a little frustrated in a hospital system in terms of the time it took to, for instance, change a form or get a program started, or get the rest of the staff on board to, hey, there's really some new practice ideas we should be integrating. And so I thought, if I could do this on my own, I'd have that freedom, the creativity to start new programs. And as I said, I felt like so I started out as a cash practice, which is becoming much more popular in physical therapy and in medicine, right? So if you have a high deductible, sometimes it might be more advantageous to actually pay cash for services if you can opt out of your insurance. So that was going fairly well, but I was still getting the question about, you don't take my insurance. So through getting connected with a management service organization, they really kind of helped me, guided me to, why don't you find your own space? We can get you credentialed with insurance. And so just adding that layer of availability or access for other people to have to see me. And so, I made the big leap in 2019, found a space in Shorewood, started building it out, and then was ready to open in April, and the pandemic hit. So I ended up having to delay opening till May, which fortunately wasn't too long. Started opening with some pretty stringent practices of obviously now mandatory masking. At the time it wasn't mandatory. Screening, temperature taking, very rigorous cleaning, and spacing appointments out to an hour so that we have time to clean in between. So I would say I have a pretty safe, low-risk practice. It's always only me and one other patient in the clinic at one time. So we don't have a lot of people coming and going.
Well, congratulations on your new endeavor.
Thank you.
Talking more about PT, can you tell us how you're able to guide people to better physical well-being and maybe even a more active lifestyle? And then how does that help people reduce their pain?
Yeah, so good question. I think for me as a physical therapist, where I have a little bit of an added skill to guide people to more physical activity is when the barriers to physical activity are pain, and maybe drilling down to, what's causing that pain. Is it physical? Are there some psychosocial determinants that are contributing? And so I think just having that extra knowledge to say, this is why your hip hurts, and let's add a really individualized approach to your exercise program to be able to get you to be more active. So we reduce that barrier of, the pain. I also work with people that have declined in balance or just declined in function, and again, just using my physical therapy skills to help them get more active again because of those declines.
And it sounds like your skills and your practice differ from, I would say, the traditional physical therapist, just in how you incorporate more physical well-being. And I know you talk a little bit about just more preventative, because, yes, people can come see a physical therapist when they get injured, right? Mm-hmm. But how can you how do you work with your patients on a more preventative basis to mitigate pain and just overall take better care of themselves?
Yeah, so I think the first question, or the first thing I guess I'd like to talk about, is from a prevention standpoint. There's many forms of prevention. There's primary prevention, which would be to recognize risk factors and try to intervene and work towards reducing those risk factors towards chronic disease. Then there's also secondary and tertiary prevention, which is probably where I end up working more as a physical therapist, for people that already have chronic conditions, persistent pain. So again, this is where I can start to use my skills, again, to reduce those barriers to getting people more active. Where I say I would differ a little bit is that I think I've been a little bit of an early adopter of the biopsychosocial aspect of medicine, of maybe starting to look at my practice more as lifestyle medicine. I think very traditionally, and it still happens in a lot of disciplines in medicine, we used to look at treating somebody's knee or treating someone's ankle or shoulder instead of treating the person. So I talk a lot to my patients, when they say, oh, my knee hurts and my shoulder hurts too, but that's not why I'm here, or, I'm really fatigued or I'm depressed, but that's not why I'm here. And it's absolutely why they're here, and it absolutely needs to be incorporated. So, I think we're definitely seeing that change in physical therapy, where we are not just treating the body part, but the patient. And again, we've also learned so much more about pain that it's changed the way we're addressed.
Yeah, so you mentioned that biopsychos.
So I think while we're seeing that move a lot in physical therapy, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You mentioned the biopsychosocial a couple times. Can you just explain for our listeners a little bit more about what exactly you mean?
Sure. So again, the biological component of treating somebody would be if you had an injury. So for instance, if you have knee arthritis, which isn't an injury, but say you have knee arthritis, then we're treating the fact that there's a physical component to your pain. What's interesting about arthritis that we've learned as of late is that we really don't think arthritis is a wear and tear disease anymore. We've learned so much about the fact that inflammation is a huge contributor, and we also know that there's a lot of things that contribute to inflammation. So this is where the psychosocial piece comes in. Are there other things contributing, such as depression, anxiety, the fact that we're not sleeping well, that we're not hydrated? Those are all huge contributors to bringing up inflammation and to actually maybe being the cause of arthritis more than actual wear and tear or mechanical things. So, and then the social piece is obviously, as I know you guys know, is the social determinants of health. I mean, there's many situations socially that can, again, make life very difficult and can really reduce your health status and ability to be well or to recover from health stressors. So that's what I mean about the biopsychosocial, really incorporating all of those into care.
So if someone comes into your office and they're having chronic pain, how are you addressing this? Like, when you're talking about the biological, social, physio, so whatever you just,
Right, right.
when you're talking about all of that, how, like, can you specifically tell us, like, what are you doing? I'm coming in, I have pain everywhere, my neck is hurting, my shoulders are hurting, I'm sitting at a desk all day. What
Mhm.
are we going to do about it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because that again is where things have really changed over the last 10 years in terms of our understanding of pain. So, we used to attribute pain again to being a tissue problem. And that is the case initially sometimes when you've had an injury or, some sort of a strain, that pain is likely really manifesting because there is a tissue problem. But what we now know about persistent or chronic pain is that tissues heal, right? So after 6 to 8, maybe 10 weeks tops, tissues heal, but sometimes pain persists. And why is that? Or why does it persist for some people and not others? And it's because the nervous system gets involved, and there's sort of a ramping up of the nervous system that naturally happens when we first get injured, but sometimes that doesn't come back down. And so what happens over time is that the nervous system isn't managing pain well anymore. And again, that there can be multiple contributors to this. So the more stressors, the more things that you have that fill up your cup, that's an analogy I use a lot, to the point where sometimes the cup overflows, the more we can have that persistent pain. So, we don't manage chronic pain the same way anymore at all. I mean, I think a lot of times people used to be really invalidated and said, well, there's nothing wrong. We're not seeing anything on a scan, and therefore there's nothing wrong. But again, you can't see these nervous system changes. Although we're starting to see some interesting tests that we can use to see that. So in answer to the question, in terms of management, it is very psychosocial approach. Trying to get at what are some of these stressors and how can we manage them, in addition to getting people moving more. But that's very individualized. It's very different for everybody. So I don't have a formula other than to say that we have to include, again, all of the potential contributors.
Yeah, I love this. And Marnie, this is so consistent with our philosophy on health, and it really gets to the whole person, not just coming in treated for a shoulder injury, but then there's anxiety and other pain
Yes.
going on. And it's really getting to the root cause, which is another belief, especially in more like the functional medicine space as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love that physical therapists, and that you in particular, are diving into this now. And you mentioned that there's some tests to look at the nervous system. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. What does that look like? Or how do you do
so
that?
it's interesting that there's been some PET scans or brain scans that they're starting to look at. And one example that comes to mind immediately, that was one of the very early ones, was that somebody that's having chronic pain, when they do a PET scan, there's certain areas of the brain that will really light up in terms of probably speaking a little bit to sort of severity, intensity of pain. And just after one session of pain education, sort of trying to explain pain, which is actually the name of the book of the author that did this study, is to start to educate people about pain. What does it mean? How threatening is this pain versus something else? And once they've had that 15-minute session to sort of start to understand pain and lower that threat level of the pain, and then they put them back in the scanner, and all of a sudden the areas that lit up before are gone. So it's much less of a activity in the brain after just a 15-minute education session. So it's really interesting, and there's more and more of that going on in the whole world of the brain, which is very interesting.
And now we want to take a quick break from today's conversation to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Lakewinds Co-op, which is a favorite grocery store of ours to shop at in the Twin Cities. We love that Lakewinds has such high standards and vets every single product on their shelves, including their amazing personal care and supplement section, so that we don't have to. As busy parents, we don't always have the time or the desire to read every ingredient label. And when we shop at Lakewinds, we have confidence that it's been done for us.
Grocery shopping should be an enjoyable and calm experience, and Lakewinds does everything to make your experience stress-free from the moment you walk in the door. The decor and aesthetics are really calming and inviting, and we have never met such knowledgeable and friendly staff in all the departments, including meat and seafood, in the wellness department, and produce. We love Lakewinds' produce section, which focuses on organic and fair trade products. About 95% of the produce is organic and local as much as possible, and they really support the local and small sustainable farmers right here in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
The meat buyers actually visit the farms. They talk to the ranchers and see their practices to ensure that the animals are ethically raised and treated, which is really important to us. All of their meat is free from additives, synthetic preservatives, nitrates, antibiotic residues, steroids, and added growth hormones. Unlike many traditional grocery stores, Lakewinds has a banned ingredient list that is used to vet the products on their shelf, which includes artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oil, etc. This applies to the food on their shelves, as well as the supplements and beauty and personal care products in their wellness department. If an item doesn't meet the product standards, Lakewinds doesn't allow it on their store, and we love that peace of mind.
We also love how they seek out local small batch makers who meet their standards and really try to support our local businesses. We all know that maintaining a healthy body and mind has huge implications on our immune systems and being able to fight off the flu. So support your health and wellness in the new year by shopping at your local co-op. You can find the fabulous Lakewinds co-ops in Minnetonka, Chanhassen, and Richfield, or have groceries delivered from Instacart. While Lakewinds Co-op is a member-owned store, you don't have to be a member to shop and receive their weekly specials. Although we highly recommend that you do become members like us for additional monthly savings and an annual dividend.
You can find out more by going to lakewinds.coop, and when you're there, be sure to check out their delicious recipes. And if you don't live in the Twin Cities, we highly encourage you to find your local co-op by heading over to National Co-op Grocers and finding one near you.
So you mentioned physio fitness earlier. What is that, and how do you incorporate that into your practice?
Yeah, so physio fitness is almost kind of like having a physical therapist as a personal trainer. So it can either be a standalone. So if you don't qualify for traditional physical therapy, where you've got it's considered to be medically necessary. You know, you've had a recent injury or a recent decline in your health status or a worsening of some pain that's been recurrent. That might be the route you'd take in terms of traditional physical therapy. But if you've got a fairly stable condition, you know, like stable coronary artery disease or Parkinson's disease or diabetes, or again, persistent pain that's fairly stable, this would be a good avenue as a standalone to just, again, be able to address some of those barriers through my lens of, you know, evaluating why you're having pain and then incorporating that into that individualized fitness forward, movement forward approach to getting more active and fit. It's also a good transition coming out of physical therapy. So once we've reached those physical therapy goals, I do have a lot of people that then transition over to continuing to work with me in the physio fitness space, just because it, you know, again, helps with motivation, accountability, and continuing to monitor some of these health conditions.
That's so cool how you can integrate the two like that.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. What are some of the most common issues that you treat?
Well, I treat a large variety. I never ended up specializing in one area. I still consider myself a generalist. So I like to treat the active older adult. I like to treat women in their perimenopausal phases, because we see a lot of spikes in tendon problems in that time period, tendinitis, tendinopathies. I like to treat arthritis. I actually currently have a program called the Conservative Arthritis Project that I just started. It's a 12-week program that is covered by insurance for the first 6 weeks, and then the next 6 weeks are kind of that physio fitness model. Again, just because we know so much more about arthritis.
I have a question about that. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt.
yeah, that's good.
So, do you need to be diagnosed from a doctor in order to come, or since you're more pay for service, anybody can come and do something like that?
Yeah, so I am not just pay for service. I also take all insurances. So I'm now credentialed with all insurance programs. So it depends on your insurance. Minnesota's a direct access state, so not everybody needs a physician referral to see me. Usually when someone gets a hold of me, we'll check benefits and let them know whether or not they need a physician's referral. Medicare is the exception. Medicare and Medicaid, you do need a physician's referral to see me. But that's usually pretty easy to get.
Okay, continue on about your arthritis.
Yeah, so arthritis is an area that's really fascinating to me that I love to treat conservatively. I mean, I really believe, because we're seeing such a spike in arthritis at younger ages, that we can manage it very well without surgery, which I know a lot of people would not agree with me about, but I really think we can. Tendon problems, I like treating runners, so young as well as older runners. So master athletes is another area that I really like to treat. And then I think in general, I really developed a more modern approach to managing the older adult. I think we used to be afraid to load our older adults because we were worried that we were going to hurt them. And I think the prevailing thought now is really that we've probably underloaded our older adults, and that we really actually, are going to put them in more danger by not giving them a little bit of a higher activity level. So.
Oh, I love that. And that's probably such a, I don't know, just an underserved community, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, can you share maybe like a success story of someone you've worked with, maybe this physio fitness program that you have, or arthritis? I'd love to, even learn more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So recently I enrolled someone in this new program that I started, the Conservative Arthritis Project. And this was a gal that was a competitive downhill skier, but had stopped skiing because she started having some knee pain in her late 50s, stopped skiing because of it, started biking and was managing it somewhat with biking. But anyway, through the program, I think she really got stronger and gained confidence and learned a lot about arthritis, what it is and what it isn't, some of the myth busters, right, what you should and shouldn't do. She hasn't tested it out on the slopes yet, but she's going to, and she started running for the first time in like 15 years. So, I mean, I think, again, you can really see where she was getting the advice to have surgery, and still is, when you're looking at that from another discipline, and yet she's managing pretty well. So I've seen a number of those success stories with the arthritic knees that were told, you got to schedule surgery, and oftentimes they send them to physical therapy as a last ditch, or they kind of set them up, we'll go ahead and do the physical therapy, but it's going to fail, and we'll see you in 6 weeks for surgery, which is just maddening, right? I mean, that's just not always true. And so anyway, that's been fun to kind of, disprove that. So those are a couple of them. I also love when people who have had no history at all of physical activity, just really never been part of their wheelhouse, and they come in and very hesitant, and very nervous about starting a fitness program, and especially because they've got, again, underlying conditions or persistent pain, and you slowly start to sneak in and sneak up the activity level, and all of a sudden they're just amazed at what they can do. They're feeling better, and it's just, it's great. It's great to see those changes.
Oh, that's so great. I mean, you're just having such a positive impact on these people's lives and well-being, and be able to move and do things that they didn't think they could ever do again without surgery.
Yeah.
I love your approach to really just, like this 12-week program. It's not easy. It takes a while to get through it, and you have to do hard work, I'm sure, to get there. But there are other solutions that may actually be better in the end.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Guarantee either.
Right. Yeah, and the research actually really demonstrates that. I mean, when you look at things like injections or knee surgeries or meniscal surgeries, for instance, which are starting to be done less and less, when you compare people that have had surgery or that have had 12 weeks of physical therapy, and you look at them a year out, there's no difference. So it's kind of interesting that, when you see that, then you start to really think about the risks of surgery, the risks of some of these invasive procedures versus, like you say, a little bit of hard work and time.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I think,
I have a story kind of like that
yeah.
personally. I hurt my knee a few years ago in
Hmm.
yoga,
Yep.
the point where I could not run at all.
Hmm.
And it was so devastating to me. And I couldn't sit like on my knees, like, where you
Hmm.
lay back on
Hmm.
your knees because it
Hmm.
hurt so badly. And I used to be able to do that very easily.
Yep.
And I ended up working with a trainer who's not a physical therapist, but
Hmm.
he helped me like basically get the strength back and the muscle
Hmm.
around that area of my knee. And
Yep.
I think it took almost 2 years. And now
Wow. Okay.
I have no knee pain. I can
Yep.
run again. I can sit like that again. And I really didn't think I would ever be able to sit in
Yeah.
that position again. So
Right.
it does work without
It
surgery.
does. It does. I have a similar story too. I had a bad injury 2 years ago, ankle, and tore a meniscus in my knee. And yeah, I mean, within a year I was back running and just fine. So you can recover without surgery for a lot of things.
And these stories are so great to share and give other people hope
Hmm.
that they don't have to go down the path of surgery and maybe,
Yes.
and to try some other things because there are people out there having great success. So
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that we're sharing this today.
Yeah, I have another really interesting share just because the whole issue of surgery. So and these studies don't happen here because I don't think we can get away with them in the US, but there's been some studies in Europe where they've done sham surgeries on a rotator cuff tear. So they would go in and actually repair the rotator cuff in half of the people and just open them up and not repair the rotator cuff in the other half. I know, right? Sounds crazy. 12 months out, they are both doing the same. So what's
Wow.
going on there, right? And what I think what's really going on there is it's a lot of things, right? Rest and then having therapy, which they could have had without the surgery, because again, rotator cuff tears are no longer mandated surgery. They can recover without surgery. So kind of interesting.
Yes.
Super interesting. And we're not saying that surgery is not necessary.
No, for
I
sure.
want to say, like, my daughter actually had hip surgery
Hmm.
last year after a full year of physical therapy and
Yeah,
lots of pain, and she is like fully recovered now.
yeah. No,
Um,
there's definitely times. Absolutely. I'm not suggesting that surgery is never necessary either. I think we have to respect that there are times where we definitely need it for sure.
there's a time and a place for it.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
Anyway, we do love to leave our listeners with some practical tips that they can implement immediately into their life. And I'm wondering if you could share, a few strategies or tips for our listeners.
Sure. So I guess what I would share is just some general tips around pain management, especially acutely. So, if you find yourself, either having had an injury or more commonly like a strain, for instance, you wake up with back pain, a couple of tips I would say is try to think about back pain or other types of pain as the common cold. Everyone gets them. It happens, to just about everyone at times, and not to worry. I think sometimes getting worried is sort of exacerbating the problem because we know, for instance, with back pain, 80% of the time it's not anything super serious. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't, if it continues or gets really bad, that you shouldn't be screened to make sure there isn't something really serious going on. But if it's kind of a first time achy naggy kind of strain sprain, try not to worry. We know that, in the beginning, the brain puts out pain because it's trying to protect you, and that's important because we reduce our activity level a little bit initially. But then once we're past that phase, we kind of let things calm down and we have to build things back up. And so I think getting with somebody that really understands pain is important because they can kind of guide you through, again, what it means and how serious it is and when it's okay to have a little bit or when it's not. So I think those are some tips I'd give. Stay positive, try not to worry, try to get back to normal activity as quickly as possible. And, if you're struggling, try to get with somebody that can help guide you through that.
So one question I have kind of on this with a tip maybe you could
Mhm.
provide. So many of us are sitting at our computer even more, right? Because not only are we working, for those of us that have desk jobs,
Right.
working from home, but then a lot of times we have all these Zoom meetings and things that we
Yes.
normally, even Zoom social happy hours. So you're,
Right.
again, sitting in a chair and staring at a computer, which we know is not great for us long term. So what tips may you have for someone that's in that situation during this pandemic?
Yeah. I mean, I think with the advent of COVID and sitting more, we've seen definitely a decline in activity level in some people, and in others, we've seen an increase. People are getting outside more. People are buying bikes for the first time. So I think we've seen a mix of good and bad in that regard. But in terms of the sitting more, I would say definitely my advice is get up and move as much as you can. So, take a break every hour and start to move. And, I'll sometimes give people a lot of tips on, just some easy neck and back exercises that you can do while you're sitting, just to take a break. There's a lot of controversy on, does bad posture, since sitting, a lot of times we talk about that, cause pain, and really the research isn't validating that, right? I mean, it's not to say that if you have pain and you're in one position for long periods that your body isn't going to talk to you, but just posture in and of itself is probably not causing pain. It's the lack of movement. And so just moving more, getting up, like I say, maybe getting some specific exercises that might be more beneficial for you based on where you're having your pain, based on if you do have some really significant postural faults, but mostly it's moving more. So that'd be one tip. And then certainly outside of just moving, in brief little periods while you're sitting is just in general to get more active, because we also know people that exercise regularly just generally have less pain, even if they're sitting for long periods.
Okay, I love that. So where can people find you? Like on your website, social media?
Yes, so on my website, would you like me to give the web address or?
Sure, and we'll also link it all up in the show notes. But
yeah, so it'll be linked in the show notes, but it's www.engagephysicaltherapymn.com. That's one place to find me. You can actually request an appointment or request a free consult on my website. I also have a Facebook page, work phone if you want to just chat. And as I said, I do offer a free consult, whether it's either in person or by video or by phone. So we can chat and you can see if I would be a good fit for you. Currently, I am also offering a special where if you sign up to do a 5 or 10 pack of the Physio Fitness with me, I'm throwing in the free virtual physio yoga class that I do on Wednesday nights, which also includes a recorded version that I send out after the class.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, so those are a couple spots to find me.
And that sounds great, and we'll link that all up in the show notes. And one final question we do like to ask all our guests is, what does the art of living well mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, living well really means building resilience, both mentally and physically, so that you can kind of take whatever life throws at you, right? And I mean, I think resilience is the ability to resist and recover from functional decline when you have health stressors. And we all have health stressors, right, every day. And so that to me is a big piece of living well. I think it's also healthy aging, which can happen at any point in life. I think we associate that with being older, but I think there's transitional points in our lives throughout our whole continuum where it's important to assess what's contributing to our health status. And so healthy aging, I think, is another way of living well, and just an individualized approach. What works for you, and finding some purpose in life, finding what works for you, and being able to do what you value. Those are all kind of, to me, is what healthy aging is.
Yeah, I love that. That's such great insight for everyone.
And I love the idea of healthy aging. And I agree with you that it's not just older people, because
Right.
I mean, you could be 10 and you're still aging, right?
Absolutely. We're always aging, and
Yes.
and we have transitional, points that, can throw us for a curve.
And maybe reframing how we use that word aging. I think
Absolutely.
it has a little bit of a negative connotation, but
You're right. You're right. And I don't always like to use it because I think there is, there's a lot of ageism going on right now. So I never like to use the age card.
well,
But,
I say I felt better at 40 and even now in my mid 40s than I did in my 20s or even
Yes.
teens. So
Absolutely. Yeah. You can start at any point and still gain.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our show today. We've loved having you. Excited to learn about your new endeavor.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a
Absolutely.
real pleasure and a pleasure getting to know you as well.
Thanks, Sue. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening to the Art of Living Well podcast. We are so grateful that you joined us today.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or anyone else you think may benefit from this information. We'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and tag the Art of Living Well podcast on social media.
If you want more inspiration in between episodes, you can find us on social media at theartofliving_well on Instagram and Facebook, where we will share snippets from our daily lives and our journey to living well.